if you love mysteries and if you like cozy mysteries, these two new mystery series that I tried out with leading ladies that I just highly recommend. And the first is And Only to Deceive by Tasha Alexander. This is her first in the Lady Emily series set in the Victorian era. And this is about, it starts out in this very first one. Lady Emily is recently widowed. She was only married for 6 months and she is widowed. And so I thought that was an extremely clever plot device where she's in the Victorian era. And so, you know, women just didn't have the same freedoms and just didn't have the same, they just couldn't do nearly as much as men could. And so it would have been kind of historically inaccurate for her to just be like gadding about town as a single woman. And then as a married woman, she would have a husband who chances are more likely than not wouldn't want her to be doing that. So as a widow, it was just the perfect plot device where she can be investigating things and traveling and doing all the socializing that she wants. As a widow, she has that kind of higher up society and higher up status in society, and so she can do those things. So I thought that was very clever of Tasha Alexander to set it up that way. And so, like I said, she is recently widowed. Her husband was on a safari in Africa and died while he was there of, I think it's malaria. So then Lady Emily is, she barely knew her husband. He left for Africa just a few months after they had been married. And then basically over the course of the book, she realizes and finds out just from like testimonials from his friends how much he really loved her. And she kind of gets to know this husband that she didn't know at all through these memories and reading his journal and things. And something about this book was just so captivating to me. I read it in a day. It did not follow the typical plot of, you know, the first 3 chapters to introduce all of the suspects and the other subsequent characters, the setting, and then there's a murder. It did not follow that at all. It was not the typical cliche format, but it kept me on the edge of my seat, and I was so compelled by the different characters. There is, you know, Lady Emily, and then her parents are characters that are there. She has a good friend, Ivy, and then she makes a couple other good lady friends throughout the course of the book. And then also there are different gentlemen who were former friends of her husband or just other gentlemen that she meets along the way. And just such vivid and punchy characters. This did not feel Victorian in like the writing style, but I was okay with that because it was so much fun. So if you want like a very fun series, and it had me guessing until the very end. I had no idea how it was going to end, and I really came to love the character of Lady Emily. I do think maybe she feels slightly aloof and distant, but I still felt that I got to know her fairly well for kind of what she had been going through, and kind of like once she gets to know her husband, she kind of has to re-grieve him. And so it was just such a unique series, and I think it just felt very refreshing. And there are, I think, 10 in the series, so if you enjoy the first one, there's so much more material to get to, and I definitely cannot wait to get to the following ones. The other series that I tried out with a leading lady was the Dandy Gilver series, and the first is After the Armistice Ball. This is a series by Catriona McPherson, and this takes place in 1930s England. And this one was a different setup in that she is in a loveless marriage, but not really miserable because her husband kind of lets her do whatever she wants. She can, it's, you know, several decades past the Victorian era, so she can go visiting people on her own, and it's not really all that scandalous. It might be slightly scandalous, but he doesn't really care, so she's kind of okay with it. And there is a friend who has another family visiting, and she calls Dandy and says, "Please, can you visit? Their jewels were stolen. I want it to be looked into." And this also was one that didn't really follow the typical format. Eventually there is a death that looks kind of suspicious, and so of course Dandy investigates, but really had me guessing until the end. And you really got into, for a cozy, I do think this qualifies as a cozy, but for a cozy you really got into the psyche of all of the characters a fair amount, even the people who were the suspects, which I think in cozies you don't always get into their psyche as much as you did in this one. So I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it, and I liked the pacing of the plot was really excellent. It slowed down when it needed to, but then anytime I would maybe start to get the teensiest bit bored, it sped right back up again, and just really was a great introduction to the character of Dandy. And the 10th one just came out last year, so there's also lots of material for you to get to with that series if you do like the first one. I really recommend these. Please let me know if you've read either of them. And I neglected to say at the beginning of this video that these were 2 on my list of mystery series I want to try video I did back last May that I'm like still getting through these. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you end up checking them out if you love mysteries, and I will see you guys for another video soon. Bye.